What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery. Welcome back to my public YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking about mental health in relationship to working with demons. So if you're someone who is approaching occult self-development and you are starting to want to do different practices like invocation or certain rituals where you're going to be working with different demonic energies and calling them into your body, but you're also someone that's struggling or dealing with certain forms of mental health issues and things in that nature, this is exactly what it is that I'm going to be speaking about in our today's video so that you as the listener can better navigate the relationship between the occult and mental illness or mental health. So you can better understand what it is that you're truly getting yourself into, and is this even a safe approach for someone that is dealing with mental health issues, and where should your mental health be before you start to get into the occult. So this is all the stuff that we're going to be covering in this today's video. So if this is something that interests you, I would highly recommend that you stay tuned, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. So we are speaking once again about the relationship between your mental health and working with the demonic realm. So this is a question that I honestly get asked literally all the time, which is, hey, if I'm dealing with some form of mental health issue, is it safe for me to start getting into different occult practices where I'm then going to be invoking energies into my body and performing rituals that are going to cause changes in my life? And this is a very valid question to be asking, because this is actually really important to know before you just jump right into something, especially if you do have some form of mental health issues that are currently taking place. This is definitely something that I wish I knew before I got into the occult field myself. Now, overall, I first want to start here. There's not a black and a white way for me to answer this question. So there are going to be people that have mental health issues right now that get into the occult and have the right intentions for getting in, that are actually going to be able to resolve a lot of those mental health issues working with the occult and invoking demonic energies. Now, on the same end of that token, there's going to be a lot of people with mental health issues that are also going to be approaching the occult from a space of not so great intentions that are probably a little bit more not grounded in the self or not grounded in authenticity, but are just looking for some form of prepping up the false self or keeping the ego alive in a way that's not healthy. And these people are going to, in many ways, probably experience re-traumatization and further fragmentation within the psyche that is going to lead to even more mental health issues. So the answer is not black and white. That's the first place that we need to understand. But this is also what we need to look at. When we're working with the occult, we are working with really sacred practices that are dealing with really deep parts of ourself. We're working with some of the deepest parts of our own subconscious and our own unconscious mind, which is really important to know, because this is not something that you play around with. We're playing with the realm and we're experiencing the realm of the unconscious, which is where all those things are inside of ourself that we are really not aware of. That's why it's called the unconscious. So there's a lot of fear there. There's a lot of baggage there. There's a lot of trauma that exists there. There's a lot of potential and there's a lot of amazing things as well. But there is a lot of that stuff that can be quite intense to process. So when we're working with these types of practices and we're working with demonic energy and we're calling that energy into our body, we are initiating extreme energetic changes to be taking place inside of self at a nervous system level that is inherently going to start bringing aspects of our unconscious up to the conscious awareness that then we're going to have to process and we're going to have to work with. We're going to have to feel through to heal and eventually release from the system. This may sound simple and it may sound easy, and although it is simple, it's not easy to do this. It's actually really challenging. But when you have the right understanding and the right foundation, you can absolutely do it and do it in a way where you get more comfortable with it over time. But when we're dealing with mental health issues, so the reality is most people that are drawn to the occult in the first place are actually drawn there because they've been through some pretty severe trauma. So the hard truth is that most people that are into the occult and attracted to it usually have some form of mental health issues that are already going on. It's just a fact. So you've probably been through some pretty significant or some pretty severe traumas in your life if you're someone that's even drawn to the occult in the first place. And there's nothing wrong about that. There's no judgment. There's no shame about that. Trauma in that way can be a beautiful thing because it shapes us into who we actually are and what we are meant to become. So I was the same way as well. The unique trauma that I had went through at childhood is literally what led me in to the darker aspects of occultism myself. And here I am today as a teacher of a lot of these sciences, and I'm very thankful for what it is that I do, and I'm also very passionate about it as well. Okay? So with that being said, we have to understand, okay, if we have, fragile mental health and we're dealing with a lot of things there, we're probably not going to want to jump right into some of these deeper practices that are working with the unconscious mind in a very powerful way, like demonic workings, doing rituals with demons, invoking demons into the nervous system. The reason why is because there are already things that you probably don't have capacity to work through already, considering the fact that you even have mental health issues that are needing to be addressed probably in a more gentle way and with a slower approach. So this is where you're going to want to work with a skilled therapist to be able to really do that inner work, whether you're working with someone like myself who can help you navigate these certain things. I'm not an actual licensed therapist, but I'm very aware of a lot of these internal processes from personal life experience and working with a lot of other people through their deeper, trauma work. Whether you're working with someone like myself or you're working with a licensed therapist who actually can help you and knows what they're talking about. So therapists that have any degrees with IFS are typically going to be the ones that I would gravitate towards, which is internal family systems. Now, with that being said, that's probably the first place that you want to start because there are foundational steps that you need to understand, like listening to your body's sensations, understanding the importance of coping mechanisms and getting off of unhealthy ones and replacing with healthy ones, understanding the importance of feeling emotions and how emotions get stored in the nervous system from trauma in the past, and understanding the relationship to trauma in the past at early childhood self-developmental stages and how it affects you now. And then, of course, tools that can support you through that process, little practices, little techniques, little tools that you can rely on to support this integration process taking place. These are the things you want to address first. And then once you have that locked in, then we can start moving into doing some of the deeper practices of initiation or invocation and ritual of working with these demonic energies, because these energies are only going to amplify all of that stuff in the shadow to start coming up to the surface, which inherently means we're going to have to start addressing trauma. We're going to have to start letting go of our false self and returning back to the core of who we are. And I know that can sound flashy, it can sound awesome, but in reality, that's a pretty painful process when you've been disconnected from yourself for the past 10, 20, 30 years, and now you're returning back to being authentic. All right? So that's what I would recommend. Now, once again, is this black and white? No, there are many people that have mental health issues that dive right into really heavy practices of ritual and invocation, and they find a way to, use it as a stepping stone to releasing trauma from the system and facing a lot of these repressed parts of themselves that oftentimes really is an excruciatingly painful process, but then they eventually can release those energies and come out on the other side as a transformed person. And that's what it was for my case. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that when I was going through my beginning stages of working with demonic energies and, trying to understand myself in the process, I was seeking help in regards to self-development. Like if I'm actually looking at it back at that time, this was like 2017-ish. I was going to seminars. I went to a Maston Kip seminar. I went to 2 of them back to back at that time. And that whole seminar was literally about the foundational pieces that I just discussed. It was about trauma, releasing emotions and attachments and all those kinds of things. So I was doing that, but I was also coming from a place where I had a lot of stuff. I had a lot of baggage. I could have did well with a personal therapist that was trained in a proper way to work with me, but I wasn't really interested in that at the time. So I went right into working with these demonic energies very intensely, and I had gone through a lot of excruciating pain and suffering that maybe wasn't fully necessary just because I didn't know what exactly I was working with or what I was getting myself into. But overall, it turned into a life experience. It's led me to where I am now, where I have a lot of things to share from a teacher's perspective, and I am thankful for it. But if I'm being honest, I know how much strength and courage and pain and suffering that I had to go through to really make it through that and get to this point where I'm at now. Do I think most people have capacity to experience that? I don't think so, to be quite honest. Do I think that there are people that can? 100%. So with that being said, when it comes to mental health, you got to be careful when you're getting into occultism, because even when we're talking about fragmentation of the psyche, this is something that is so basic when it comes to self-development and something that every single one of us has. But so many people don't actually understand what that means. They don't even know, like, what do you mean by a fragment? What do you mean fragmentation? And so when it comes to the concept of parts that exist within your system, this is something that you really want to understand before getting into working with demons. Because what I see a lot of people do is they unconsciously don't know themselves enough to even understand they have parts of them, which means they inherently are not aware that they probably are not in touch with their authentic self. They may very well be identified with a part of them where they think it's who they are, when really it's just a fragmentation part. So it's not the whole them. The whole them exists in the center amongst the parts. The true self, or the central self, is not a part. The reason why this becomes really important to know is because when you start invoking other energies into your system and you start communicating with demons, what I see a lot of people do is they're actually communicating with certain parts of themselves. So they're communicating with protector parts, they're communicating with manager parts, they're communicating with vulnerable parts. And then what they do is they start associating the demon to these parts. So they start thinking that this part is actually the demon, when in reality, the demon is not that part. The demon may be trying to communicate through that part or to get past that part to get to your core in different ways, but it becomes a thin line of what is real and what isn't real, or what is me and what isn't me, or what is the demon and what is a part of me that I'm communicating with right now. And this is going to take time to really develop a relationship with yourself first, to understand who you are and what you are at your core, so that you can build a relationship with your parts to recognize, okay, so this is this part and this is this part. And most of us have a grouping of familiar parts in our system. I think on average, most people are going to have about 5 to 10 parts that are pretty significant parts in our psyches that we can recognize when they show up. But it starts with us becoming aware of them, disconnecting from them if we're attached and identified, returning to our core so that we can start reparenting all the parts. But you can imagine if someone's jumping into occultism and then they're invoking these demonic energies, and the next thing you know, because they're doing the invocations or they're doing the different practices, for the first time in a long time, they're starting to actually slow things down because they're in the ritual space or they're setting things up and they're kind of just meditating for the first time. Now all those parts get active. So they're starting to hear voices in their head, little communications. And then they're like, oh my gosh, that's the demon. It's the demon that's speaking to me. And maybe it is the demon, or maybe it's a part of you. Okay. Maybe it's a part of you that's, rooted in your past trauma, and you are thinking you're talking to a demon when it's not that. And then you go and you tell your friends, I'm talking to a demon, or you go on your social media, TikTok, and you tell everyone, I spoke to this demon. This is what it said. You're telling your whole following of people that listen to you, hey, I spoke to this demon. This is what it communicated to me. It told me that this is going to happen. We got to watch out for this. We have to protect ourselves from this. The evil, this evil is taking place. When in reality, you were just talking to a protector part in your psyche that's always been a part of your psyche from when you went through your trauma in early childhood. And that part is designed to try to protect you. So it's viewing things in a way where it's inherently not safe. And now you're telling people it's a demon. You're telling yourself it's a demon when it's not a demon. It's a part of you. Whereas the demon might be there the whole time, like, that's not the message I have. That's not really what I'm trying to show you. I'm actually trying to show you to connect more with your core and to be willing to build relationships with these parts so that you can start healing those childhood wounds so that I can start moving through your nervous system more effectively and helping you through your process of self-development to live the life that you want to live. That might be the real message of the demon. And then you can, there's layers to this, obviously. There's levels to this, but you have someone that doesn't understand themselves that's already dealing with a bunch of, parts in their system that are angry and aggravated and feel like they're not being understood, and the person's hasn't been in touch with their core for years, and they've been identified with this false self part of them. And then they get into the occult and they start working with demons, and the demons, what do they initiate? They initiate the death cycle. They initiate the dissolving, the deconstruction, the dissolution cycle. They initiate that shadow to come to the surface where you're now seeing, oh my gosh, I'm not being myself. Oh my gosh, this is what's really taking place in my psyche. Oh my gosh, this is something I thought I needed in life that was important for me that I'm realizing is just an attachment because I'm insecure or I feel shame, right? And then we start going through that, and now we're freaking out because we're like, what's going on? Like, who am I? What am I? What's the demon? Is the demon attacking me? What are these other voices in my head? What's going on? And it creates room for a lot of chaos within the system that then can sort of dysregulate us and cause us to flip out or have a mental breakdown. This is where you get people that get into occultism and they go to the psych ward or they go to mental hospitals because they're not understanding what they've invited into their life, what type of transformation it starts to initiate within self. And they never understood who they actually are at the core. So when all that energy starts moving and it starts showing them who they actually are, and it starts separating them from the false self, that's scary to see. Like, that's a human response to be afraid to leave a protective part of us that we were identified with, because that part was giving us a sense of false safety, false security. So when you leave that, how scary does that feel? It feels like you're free falling, and then you mix in the fact that you're working with demons that are initiating that process even more. They're basically intensifying it. And now you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm out of control. I don't know what's happening. I have to go to the psych ward. Help me, help me, help me. I'm not human. I don't know what's happening. I'm losing myself. I'm losing myself. So that's obviously something we don't want to have to experience. We don't want to have to go down that road. There are people that will, and there are people that are going to have to. And usually most of the times it becomes a learning experience. It becomes a lesson. But there are many people that don't have to go down that road either, because they're preparing themselves properly through the self-development process and working on those fundamental steps first of understanding parts, understanding the nature of trauma, understanding that feeling is healing and connecting to body sensations is the roots of listening to intuition and trusting the instincts. And then from there, then we can have a much healthier approach in the occult and actually get so much more results with everything it is that we're doing, because we're not being so hindered by our unawareness of how trauma affects our system. And that's going to be really important. And it's also going to prep us to be much more willing to go through the let go phase of the death cycle that will initiate itself with the demonic realm. And then you start to really build real relationships with these demonic energies where you can be connected with your core and understand the demon. You can, from the core self, the true self, you can hear the demon authentically. You can recognize your parts in your system, and then you can hear the demon coming through, and it just rings real true and real strong to the core of self, and you'll feel it. And it will be a strong, like, you'll know it. Like, okay, that's the demon. That is it. I feel it in my bones. Whereas when you don't have that healthy foundation, you're in there, you hear one little thing from a part of you, and then you're like, that's a demon. I think that's it. That's what it's communicating to me. And you have no idea that that's even a part of you. So you think it's a demon. You think it's something else when it's actually a part of you. And then the demon's like, all right, we got to give this person a second to like figure themselves out before we can actually help them. Okay. So that's just my advice on this subject here. If you are dealing with mental health issues, the occult, by just jumping into it cold turkey, is most likely not going to be the answer to your problems. It's not just going to solve your problems. It's actually going to amplify things a little bit more intensely for you to then be able to see them. But if your foundation is not healthy, most likely that's going to create more room for re-traumatization, and you could very well end up in a psych ward. These occult practices are real deal practices, working with some really ancient technology on connecting with the unconscious and connecting with repressed parts of self and surfacing things within the nervous system, even at an intergenerational level. You don't play around with that stuff. Okay. When you work with a sigil and you sit and do an invocation and you set up a ritual space with symbolism that triggers these things in the subconscious, as well as channels these energies from space, you're accessing things that most people don't understand work. And that shit does work. I can attest to you. I have worked with people for years doing this now. I've worked with people that are some of the most severe skeptics you could ever imagine. I give them a series of processes to follow that initiates themselves with these demonic energies. And the next thing you know, a month later, their lives are completely shifting and they don't even know why it's happening. And then they come to me and they're like, okay, I think some of this stuff might be real. It is real. There's no doubt about it, but you want to know how real it actually is and what you're channeling into your body and what types of changes you're going to start going through. So that way you can process it in a healthy way. And having a foundation is not like super complicated. It's actually really simple and it's practical to do. You just generally want to give yourself a nice 6 months to like a year to really lock down that foundation as best as you can. Now, obviously, if you work with someone like myself who can really support you through that process and reflect things back to you, we could do that in 3 months. Okay. And that's connected to my 3-month mentorship, which is the second link in my YouTube video descriptions. But overall, what I was saying is give yourself generally 6 months to a year to really educate yourself on, somatics, IFS, trauma, the nature of trauma, where it comes from, how it affects you. the importance of like your coping mechanisms, your healthy ones, your unhealthy ones. Give yourself that time. And then once you feel, you've got that figured out or you've got that locked in, then take that step into the occult. In the meantime, educate yourself. Continue to watch videos about the stuff that I'm teaching. Continue to educate yourself by reading some of the books so you can better understand the occult and you can better understand from other people's perspectives. So hopefully you're consuming my content and you're learning, from my perspective, but I also encourage you to consume other people's content that are also occultists to hear from different angles and different facets of, different practitioners that are actually doing this work. So you can have a well-rounded perspective of everything you need to know. Okay? So that's what I'm going to say there. Now, once again, with working with demons and doing occult work, this absolutely can completely shift mental health issues that you may have been dealing with in your life too. So the occult, because it's working with such deep layers of the unconscious, you can literally resolve and heal so many things within your nervous system that a lot of doctors would tell you are unable to be resolved. They will give you a stamp. This is what you have for the rest of your life. This is your disorder. Good luck. Here's a medication. When in reality, working with this stuff, there are people that have severe mental illness that are approaching this, working on wanting to build that healthy foundation and having an intention to heal, and they can make huge strides of progress with releasing mental health issues, shifting them into, value within the system. Because every mental health issue is just a natural response that the nervous system is giving to something that happened in the past. So it's not really like an issue. It's not a disorder. It's an intelligent response. It knows what it's doing and it's doing it to try to protect you still. So when you get to work with that and you get to bring vulnerability and sensitivity to that, that part of you that thinks it needs to be disordered to protect, it releases and then it orders itself, and then you're free again and you're able to be you and not have to deal with that anymore. And you can start healing in ways you never thought was possible. So that's also worth knowing too. Okay. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. If you got value from this, thumbs it up. Drop down into the comment section. Let me know what you received from this. Let me know what your experience is working with demons and working with the occult, especially if you're someone that was dealing with mental health issues as well. What are some of the things that you needed to know and that you wish you did differently potentially, or the things that you did right? Share those things in the comment sections so that people that are curious about these questions can actually read from your personal experience and have something to work with themselves. Okay? Hit the notification bell and get notified whenever I post. At this point, I'm posting every single day, so take advantage of it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's going to further connect you to everything I do, so make sure you're subscribing. Copy and paste this link, send it to someone that needs to hear it. If you know someone that would gain value from this, send it to that person. My intention is to spread this content like a wildfire so that more people can come to this understanding together. Okay, now I'm going to take your awareness to the most important link within the description. That is my Patreon. It's the first link. This has tons of exclusive content on it, organized very neatly in different collection sections, all the way from trauma education, nervous system regulation, working with the shadow, all the way to an entire magic training course, which is literally like going to college for occultists. Okay, definitely look into that. Tier 3 and 4 gives you access to a ritual service. That's the only ritual that I perform for my collective. I do it on the 29th of every single month. The deadline to sign up is the day before. It's an energetic transfer from me to you to support you through an initiatory process of working with your deep unconscious mind, surfacing a lot of those repressed negative energies in your system, bringing them up so that they can be worked with and integrated and released. And ultimately what this does is it gives you more of an ability to trust your connection to your authentic self. And then your shadow starts working with you because you're no longer suppressing it. And that's when your life starts to go through some pretty significant changes. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely take advantage of it. It is tier number 3 and 4, first link in the description. We'll leave it there. Second link, this is where you can book a one-on-one call with me, or you can jump right into mentorships. It's literally the most intimate and powerful way to work with me. So if that's also something you want to take advantage of, look into that. Second link below. Now in the same second link below, you can book a tarot card reading with Alexia. She's a very gifted tarot card reader. She can help you understand what's going on in your life right now so that you can better navigate it, and then what to expect in your near future. Second link below as well. Third link is the LUCIFERS Foundation course. This is an entire course that gives you everything you need to know to develop a healthy yet powerful relationship with the energy known as Lucifer. Take advantage of it. Fourth link is my YouTube memberships. This is where you can join into the Universal Mastery Collective Consciousness, which I would be more than honored to have you a part of. It's literally like a big family, and we're all able to be supportive for each other, through the processes that we're going through. And I would be more than happy to, have you a part of this family and see your name show up with the green letters and the little badge next to your name. It's always an awesome thing. Okay. Fifth link is also where you can purchase some books that me and my friend, Nick McCool, the Cosmic Observer on YouTube, partnered on. And we created these to offer as tools for your process of working with occultism that can literally be used for the rest of your practices for the rest of your life. I mean, these are tools that you can always refer back to, and it comes in the form of an ebook bundle if that's something you want, or you can purchase the physical copies directly on Amazon, and all of that is at that fifth link below. Now, with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. I appreciate all of you very, very, very much. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.